what I think happens, and every time that there's a failure, a large failure inside an organization that becomes public, that's very damaging, the question always arises, where was internal audit? And especially, now that they have been empowered to have the ear of the audit committee and to report into the CEO level, that's a big question that happens. And I'm not sure that it's always a fair question, because at organizations where these things happen, internal audit has typically not been empowered to have the kind of say that it would like to have. I think internal audit is always on the lookout for things that are not working inside an organization, things where the controls are not in place to prevent things like fraud, abuse, especially at the highest levels. It's not very often that they're looking the other way. I think what happens more often is they just are not empowered to bring those problems to light. But where they have been, and there's been plenty of cases where internal audit reports are the impetus for a big problem at a company to be found and to be dealt with. And hopefully, when they're dealt with early, they can be overcome. It's when that, especially when they're taking place at a higher level, they're left to fester, and the problem gets bigger and bigger, and ultimately it can unravel into a scandal that's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and that's pretty much the worst case scenario that you'd ever want to be in. I think if you look back to the Enrons and WorldComs and the things that created the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, SOX, you can look back and say, for the most part, SOX has worked. That it's enabled, it's empowered internal audit, but it's put a lot of structure in place to make sure that the controls over financial reporting are there. And we just haven't seen it, at least here in the United States, we have not seen a lot of accounting failures, a lot of accounting scandals that were fairly routine. When I was first covering a lot of this stuff at CFO Magazine, you'd have one at a public company every few months of a pretty sizable scale. And we haven't seen a lot of those. Now, things have been very good over the last, the expansion that's been taking place since the recession of 2008. We're looking at a 10-year run at least of an expanding economy. And it's only usually during tough times that some of this stuff will come to light. So we'll have to wait and see what happens over the next 6 months to a year to see if we do have some of the failures that you would expect to see in a downturn, even though it's been brought on.
I think, Joseph, you mentioned a very important point. It's about how, the top management, the board wants to position the internal audit inside the organization. So why do you think, sometimes they don't empower internal auditors?
Well, there's plenty of reasons why they don't. It's kind of rare that those are, nefarious reasons. There is some thinking, say by a very powerful CEO, that internal audit can get in the way, that it doesn't allow the organization to move as fast as it would like to move, that they don't want to put, they kind of think of it as more layers of bureaucracy, and we don't need checkers checking checkers. You hear that all the time. But there are other, risk management and internal audit experts that will tell you, and again, another analogy that I really like about internal audit, that it's kind of like the brakes on a car, that if you don't have brakes, you can only drive so fast. There's nothing in place that's going to stop you, and you're going to be much more cautious. But if you do have a very robust internal audit function, a compliance function, these types of structures in place, they allow you to move quicker. In my book, I think they allow you to do more. They allow you to explore, the edges of what businesses and organizations can do, knowing that when there are problems, when there are, things that are coming up, when things are not working right, that those are going to be brought to light and they're going to be fixed. So I think, that's how I would look at that.
Very interesting. Now, finally, Joseph, tell us about, the publication that you have, which is Internal Audit 360. Just for at least the Middle East professionals to know about it, and what should we expect? If I want to go online and read the publication, what value it will add for my knowledge, for example.
Sure. One of the things we're really just trying to do is to be, to cover the profession, a very important profession that has a great professional organization, but doesn't have as much, coverage from the outside, an independent voice that's looking at trends, that's looking at different things that are happening. And, we're trying to do more, Q&As of internal auditors. I think internal auditors love to hear from other internal auditors about how they're doing things. And companies or internal audit functions especially, they don't want to have to reinvent the wheel every time that they come up to a problem that's already been solved by somebody else at a different organization. So hopefully I can, and reporters that we talk to or that we're publishing their articles, we can get them out there talking to innovative internal audit leaders and asking them, that's my goal, is to talk to innovative internal audit leaders, ask them what they're doing to make their functions run really well. What are the technologies that they're trying to put in place, and what are the problems that they're up against that they're finding creative solutions to solve? And if I can get some of that knowledge onto the pages of, the digital pages of Internal Audit 360, and it's www.internalaudit360.com. I had to put that plug in there. If I can get those types of articles, I think it's going to be a win for the readers. It's going to be a win for us, and that's really the goal, is to create a good publication. We're really just getting started. There's a lot more to come. I think you're going to start to see more articles more often. We're doing some podcasts. We're doing, some different types of things. And, I want to be creative about it. I don't want to cover, I think the internet is really we're just scratching the surface of the things that we can do. And, with these great interviews that you do, you can see what we can do with it. It's a very, great medium to bring information in all different forms. And we're going to explore all of those things on Internal Audit 360.